So I feel as if that people came to the meeting, those who were interested, and I think we should adhere to the deadline.
Mayor French?
Yeah, I've actually come 180 degrees on this because it is a request for information, kind of how the county did theirs. Let's get some ideas generated. The sooner we get that started, we can always ask for more information from these vendors, and then they can come back with additional information. So I would tee that up with that responder that just get something in, and
all right,
we'll take it from there.
Terrific.
So we'll stay firm with the date then.
25th.
Okay, perfect, good.
Okay. And I will ask the commission, I know this was not on the agenda, but you do have a parking expert here that may want to just hear what he has to say.
30 seconds or less?
Well, less, yeah, a few minutes, maybe a couple of minutes.
Absolutely.
Jim?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's not a bidder, by the way. He agrees, he's not a bidder.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening to me this evening. As Bishop said, I attended the pre-bid meeting on the 4th. Looking around the room in the course of the meeting, I was observing the different potential vendors. And I feel our services, my company is CapTech Incorporated. We're a consultancy and technical services provider in the revenue collection industry. The company is 20 years old. I've been in the industry since 1986. Just listening to several of the items that came across, it's certainly, of course, up to your prerogative not to extend, but I have a feeling you may get a few other vendors that might ask for an extension. It's not a very simple system that you're asking for. It is a little bit complex, and I would hate to see you spend money on something that's not going to work for you, which is where I might possibly be able to come in, assist you and your subcommittee on evaluating the potential bids that come in. One of the things I would do immediately is I would like to share with you a couple of copies of some sample documents that I have used in the past, if I may have you pass them around. Basically, it's a questionnaire for your vendor. This should have gone out with your packets, or should have gone out soon after the initial bid meeting. This will give you information about the individual vendors. They have to answer all of these questions just to give you information on what they might provide to you. You certainly, if you would like, I certainly, with no cost to you, give you a copy without sample written across it. So if you wish to use it, it would be my pleasure to provide it to you to use. It's just a basic document that we've used before to analyze the different companies and vendors as to where they might go, what their companies do, what they don't do. You're going to have a large spectrum of bids, I think. Some of the companies that were there are very big in parking. Some of the companies that were there are fairly small. Based on the information received at the meeting, again, your system is fairly complex, but you don't need to buy the Rolls-Royce right now if all you need is the Volkswagen. These systems are usually what I'll call modular in design and can be expanded. If you have a basic system that you see might not be working totally to your satisfaction, the vendors can build upon them as it presented. We would also perform what we would call pre-revenue testing on the equipment if you so choose to hire my company. We would go to the vendor. Once you choose a vendor and they start putting a system together for you, we'd go to their facility, check the system, make sure that it's working. We would talk with you as to which guidelines you want, and we could develop a test for this. Again, I have some documents here of a pre-test of an installation, testing of the operation of the equipment. I can supply these to you if you wish. I'll leave the copies with Bishop. We can develop an individual checklist based on the vendor's equipment that you are proposing to buy. I feel that because it's fairly complex, your subcommittee may need some assistance in choosing the right system so that you're not spending money unnecessarily. And that's where we would come in and try to help out.
Your name is Jim?
My name is Jim, yes, sir.
Thank you, Jim. Now, and I see you're $125 an hour, is that right?
That's what our basic fee would be, and I already spoke to Bishop. We're estimating somewhere perhaps maybe about 100 hours on the project based on your January 25th deadline.
Right.
I would suggest extending it, but of course, you've made that decision already, and I can't change that. But you are going to get...
I've changed my mind yet again.
We do that.
You are going to get vendors that are going to probably ask for some extension of time, or you'll have vendors who potentially would have bid, but may not bid now because they don't have enough time to put something together for you. So, of course, it's ultimately your decision, but...
Jim, the vendors that you were at the meeting on the 4th, you
Yeah.
said, are they selling their equipment, or are they buying it and installing it? How does it
Some
work?
of the vendors that were there manufacture their own equipment, install, maintain. One of the vendors that Bishop was talking about, the gentleman who was talking about a lot of the management, they also supply the equipment, the hardware, they develop the software. Some of the companies buy equipment from equipment manufacturers, and they're a distributor for that manufacturer. So they're just going to be kind of in the middle, and then you decide, if you want to go with them, they'll hire their own installers, and they'll do their own, I don't know if they do their own software, but they'll get software directed from the manufacturer.
Are you able to recognize from your experience vendor products that are compatible, that we would save money if we went with brand X, that kind of thing? I mean, you're not beholden to any
No, I have no tie to any particular vendor that's out there. We're an independent consultancy and third-party technical services provider. And what we do is, for our technical services, is we do stuff like installation management, maintenance of the equipment. We've done work with Long Island Railroad, Metro North. We've installed all of their ticketing machines over the years. And of course, now the manufacturer of that equipment has taken over that job, but we initially did it for Metro North and Long Island Railroad. We have contracts with companies, mostly rail companies throughout the country, that use ticketing machines or revenue collection systems similar to yours. We just finished a project in New Jersey for a company that manufactures parking equipment for Travel Centers of America, if you're familiar with those. Also Petro, they're huge truck stop parking facilities where 18-wheel truck drivers can drive in, park their vehicle, go take a shower, have a meal, rest for the night, and then they pull out. And they are all controlled by gates and barriers, which is something that you're looking for. To have a fully automated system when you don't have an employee present, this is where it gets complex, because now you have a system where you're depending on the public to be honest with you and buy the proper ticket from the machine without, saying, I'm a senior, but I'm 40 years old, but I'm going to buy a senior ticket. And your revenue structure, how you want to break this down, is a little bit complex. So it's going to take a little bit doing by the manufacturers.
So let's say the bids do come in on the 25th, and it takes us 6 weeks to decide. And let's say March 1st we pick somebody. Let's say just your basic implementation. Can we get this up by Memorial Day?
We're talking middle March to make your evaluations. Keep in mind, if this is going to be custom software, which most likely it will be, the hardware is no problem. But the custom software is going to have to be put together pretty quickly in order to do that by Memorial Day. There's a possibility, but you may be stretching it just a little bit. It is nothing to say that you can't. You can put this in after the season starts. I don't want to tell you how to do your jobs, but of course the system can go in at any time. So if you're saying, May 31st is the day we want to open the system, then you're putting all of the vendors under the gun. If you can be a little bit more flexible and say, okay, well, we may not be able to get it in by May 31st, but maybe by July 4th. That gives the vendor another month to really get down what you want, and of course helps you make your decision. So you're not rushing through your decision as well.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, that's all I had. I appreciate you allowing me to take the time.
So if we decided to use your services, I presume it makes sense to, we should get the bids first before we, if we get one bid, then there's not much for you to advise us on, I guess.
That's totally up to you. I mean, we would still be able to do some work for you. Again, if you choose a vendor and you only have the one vendor, we could still do some work for you by going and working with the vendor, making sure their equipment is working right the way you want it. We would converse with your subcommittee and with you to be sure that what you're asking them to do is actually what they are doing. So that's up to you. If you wish to hold it off, that's fine. If you wish to not hire me at all, of course, thank you for the opportunity. But I really think this is not as a simple project as you may feel it might be. It seems a little bit complex, unless you change the way things are going to be done.
Let me ask you this question.
Sure.
If we could turn, the whole system, I mean, of the people you saw, how many of the vendors are just selling equipment, and how many come with a comprehensive, systematic solution?
I think all of the vendors that I saw at the meeting probably would come in with a comprehensive solution. They'd come in with the hardware and the software.
Would they run it themselves, or they would have?
Oh, well, that, I don't know. That would be something that would be, there's only maybe one or two of the vendors that would actually want to operate it themselves. But
Right.
as an automated system, I have to tell you, it's not complicated to, once it's implemented, it's not complicated to work, to run. You could have some local employees with some training operate the system. You could hire a company such as ours to help you operate the hardware and the software of it, making sure it runs properly, provide preventive maintenance schedules and things like that. But I wouldn't see all of those vendors wanting to come in and actually take over the project. It's fairly small compared to other big parking projects like airports and universities and
Yeah.
corporate.
Well, let me ask you this question. How do they evaluate it? How do they evaluate the project? Do they look at, what our existing expense base is and then make a determination, or they look at, I mean, how do they?
They're going to come in and say, if this is what you want, this is what it's going to cost. The more complex, the more it's going to cost. The less complex, obviously, the less money it's going to cost. But they're all going to come in. I don't know if they're going to be able to hold to this preliminary budget number that was mentioned earlier here. That might be hardware only. And now you're talking about software development, which is really where the money is. Hardware is not the expensive part. It's the software development. So some of the vendors ask for a lot of financial information as to how much revenue are you taking in, what are your losses right now. You also have to be interested in your ROI, obviously. You want to know how long it's going to take you to recover this. Now, from the numbers I saw, you may recover it within a year, but it might take 2 years, depending on how complex you want the system to be. So that's where I am on that.
Bill?
It's a quick question. One other alternative as far as this process goes would be to hire a firm such as his to be like the headhunter who would actually go out and find, I know we nailed that to, 250 or so, but that's kind of a gunshot approach. Shotgun, that's what I'm trying to say. Whereas...
Well, it seems to me we should have Jim here on day one.
Yeah, well, this is how you learn, but I think the fact is it might be a fruitful way. I know even in the issue of like renovating the administration building, one of the approaches would be to hire a realtor who would go out and find developers for us rather than us trying to find our own developers. And in this case, possibly his company or some other company could actually pinpoint, the kind of business that are out there. I mean, I don't know.
If I may, basically you've done what you should have done. You put out a request. Again, it really should have been a request for information, I think, not a request for proposal. Because you're really a little unsure of what you're looking for. I mean, it was such a broad, it was a small document with a broad outline. You have 10 potential or 8 potential vendors. I think that's going to be adequate for your project. I don't think you need to go out and try to find somebody else. If they didn't respond to the initial request, they're not interested.
But you don't think there's other people out there who might be better than those?
I don't think so. Some of the vendors I know personally, I don't know the people who were there, but I know their companies personally. Some of them are the best parking system companies in the country. So you've got a bunch of people who are really, as I say, at a lower spectrum, local people who have a company here locally, and then you've got some people from across the country that really know their business, and again, they do huge parking projects, airports, universities, corporate headquarters, things like that.
The
So
only reason I bring it up is that I talked to Bishop, and remember when the people from the city of Rye did that PowerPoint on, they talked to the company who does Playland, and I think we did mail something to that company, and we heard nothing from them.
They may not be interested.
I don't know why we didn't hear anything from them.
They may be too small a project.
Well, I don't know, I'm just kind of wondering, that's all.
there are some companies that won't
Won't
touch
do
a
it.
project under a certain dollar value. It's not worth it to them. Again, if you wish to, even if you don't hire me, if you'd like me to send you a copy of that document without it saying sample on it, I certainly